So when do we stop to take questions?
So
It's now 9 minutes before 6.
So questions and answers can be at your discretion. Questions and answers or comments can be at your discretion throughout the class or at the end or both.
Okay.
So we do it both ways. And then
When-
probably the end of
Everything.
lecture, including questions and comments, should be roughly 7.
Okay.
So also for your discretion. And then we'll have another kirtan for everyone who doesn't know the schedule, because Arcita Prabhu is our guest. So also for the rest of you, to the extent you don't know our schedule, we have the class will end, including discussion, around 7-ish. Then we're going to have another little chanting session just like this. It will be nice. And then we're going to serve a vegetarian dinner, food offered as part of the yoga, spiritual yoga process, food prepared and for the pleasure of God in a prayerful way. So that'll be served after the last chanting. So if you're able to stay with us for all that, that's great. And a very brief introduction, Arcita.
But I think before I introduce myself, you should introduce yourself, because some people are here for the first time, and you're the host, so introduce yourself.
Fine. So I welcome everyone here for equally for those who I see regularly or not for the first time, as well as those here for the first time.
Well, who's here for the first time? Put your hand up.
Okay, so
Quite
we've
a
got
few.
a good bunch of persons here for the first time. So that's good because this program is actually we're set up to share with people these ancient teachings, but relevant to the today's times for persons who have little to no experience in studying this or practicing this. So it's great. This is a great occasion for you then to learn about it. It is meant for persons like you. Yeah, so my name is Atma and my wife is Suvi. And so with a little help from our friends, we organized this program on Saturdays. And I'm practicing this since 1990. I know Arcita since the mid-90s when I was dressed as someone in the renounced position with brahmacharya, with orange clothes and shaved head, and I lived in a temple for many years. She did too, with a female counterpart in Europe. And since then, we're organizing this program here for 15 years every Saturday, and this is what I do on the side, but it's the most important thing for me. And then in the rest of my time, too much of it, I spend running a law firm. And I know Arcita Prabhu because he's been serving in Srila Prabhupada's Hare Krishna movement since as long as I know him, full time doing so. When I met him, we were spending some time in a temple just outside of Washington D.C. and he was there helping manage Krishna conscious affairs and preach, sharing Krishna consciousness with others at that temple. And then later I found he was in one of our biggest temples in North America in Los Angeles doing the same. And then we had the good fortune to have found out that he came back to New York, where he's originally actually from, since before I met him, and staying at our main Hare Krishna temple, which is in Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn. If you want more information about that, we can provide that too.
So why don't you have your wife say a few words about herself, and then. No, we're not accepting that. You have guests. When a guest is in your home, you have to tell them something about yourself. Where are you from? How did you get embedded in this Hare Krishna movement? Briefly.
So my name is Subhangata. So I am same like my husband. I met devotees Hare Krishna like probably 1990, or 91 in Croatia. So I also live in the temples, the Hare Krishna temples for maybe 12 years in Croatia, Serbia, and England. Then I went back to school. Now I'm a teacher. I work in the city public schools, so a secondary teacher. It's my job, and I live like a Krishna.
Thank you. That wasn't so hard, was it? yeah, emphasis. So, all right. Before I say a few words about myself, Prabhupada started this movement formally in 1966. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness was incorporated here in New York City in 1966.
And
So,
probably today or yesterday.
yes, it's on the calendar,
It's like,
coming up soon.
I think like summer says like 13,
Yeah.
July 13, I think. I'm just checking. It doesn't say the book.
So at that time, some of Prabhupada's friends asked him, why don't you just call it the International Society for God Consciousness? And Prabhupada said, no, Krishna Consciousness, because that is his mission. That's the mission of our Sampradaya or spiritual lineage, to establish that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna. There may be other names to God, we don't deny that, or some say God has no name, whatever. But in our lineage, spiritual lineage, we want the public to be aware of the fact that one, the prime name of God is Krishna. We explained earlier about the all-attractive why Krishna is. So, I was actually born in the island of Jamaica, 1952, before internet, TV was just introduced, at least where I was born. And so there was practically no distraction for children. If you were curious about anything in the world, there was no chat GPT. You had to read. So I was an avid reader. My mother was a school teacher. I was reading fluently by the time I was 4 years old. And information back in those days meant whenever there was a new version of the Encyclopedia Britannica, my father would buy it and bring it home, and then I would just spend days just buried in the book reading about this ism, that this country, that country. Curious. Long story short, my parents immigrated here, and I grew up in New York City, went to Erasmus Hall High School, and then to Polytechnic Institute of New York. Back then it was called Polytechnic Institute of Brooklyn. And I'm coming down the street, 1973, springtime, and walking down J Street, just a few minutes from where the temple is located now. And I saw one of the renunciants, bright orange clothes, sitting at a book table. And my first thought was, this guy's pretty brave to walk around New York dressed like this, you know. So I went over, and after a conversation, I got just a little pamphlet called Krishna, the Reservoir of Pleasure.
And we have those on the table.
Yes, so you can see before you leave. And at that time, I was the kind of person who was always late for everything. Late for class, late for dates, late for party, late for everything. So I put it in my backpack, but one night I got somewhere uncharacteristically early. What to do? So I went in my backpack and I found that little pamphlet, and I read it. And from the very first sentence, Srila Prabhupada just grabbed my attention. It says, Krishna, that name is transcendental. Krishna means the highest pleasure. Every one of us is looking for pleasure, but we don't know where to look. And that kind of really hit me hard, because I was the, you could say, the pleasure director of my clique. I was the one who arranged all the parties and found all the good stuff to get high, and like that. I was like the director of the pleasure seekers. So when Prabhupada said, you don't know where to look for pleasure, but like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Okay. So I went to the temple at that time. It was on Henry Street in Brooklyn. That was the third. This was the first. Then there was, 61 or 62? I always get confused. I think it's 61 2nd Avenue was the second temple. And then they moved to Brooklyn, the third temple in the Hare Krishna movement. So that's where I joined, 1973. And yeah, so I was attracted by the philosophy. Nowadays, there are so many attractive features of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. The music, the food, festivals. But I was initially attracted by the philosophy, because although I was a dyed-in-the-wool, hedonistic person, in the back of my mind, I was always looking for answers. Who am I? Where did I come from? What does it all mean? How do I fit into this universe like that? So I started going, and within a short time joined the movement. Now, the other aspect of Prabhupada's movement is that he called it the International Society, even though he created it right here in New York. And he barely had a center, this one center, this very room we're sitting in. What do you mean international? Now we see why. Because personally, I've been all over the world, and almost every major city in the world has a Hare Krishna temple. Coming up in September, I will be going to some that I've been to before and some that I haven't been to. I'm going to Croatia, by the way, Mataji, again for the nth time. I've been to Croatia many times. But first I go to Slovenia, then from Slovenia I go to Croatia, and then after Croatia I was thinking I should go to Italy, but I've been to Italy many times, so I was thinking, and then I just got an email from a colleague who was originally from Ireland. So I said, oh, I've never been to Ireland. So we connected, and I'm going to go to Ireland instead of Italy. Hare Krishna. So I just wanted to take a quick survey of who's from where to show that Prabhupada's movement is international. Again, I was born in Jamaica, now I'm an American citizen. Where are you from?
I'm from Ecuador.
Ecuador.
South America.
Hare Krishna.
Colombia.
Colombia. Yeah, close by.
Born in India, living in Seattle.
Okay, where in India?
Visakhapatnam, Andhra.
Yeah. I haven't been to Visakhapatnam yet, but I've been in the area.
From Ecuador.
Ecuador also.
Seattle.
Ecuador also.
Seattle.
Oh, Seattle, so you're a Native American.
Bangladesh.
From Bangladesh, Hare Krishna. I was just at a Bangladeshi Ratha Yatra in Brooklyn, Queens this morning. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Kofi?
Yeah, parents from Ghana, born in Sweden. I've been living in New York.
Oh, excellent. You speak Swedish?
I do.
Oh, good.
France.
From France. Bonjour, or bon après-midi.
From India, Calcutta.
Kolkata, okay.
India, Mumbai.
Okay, Mumbai. Yes, sir?
From India, Andhra Pradesh.
Andhra. Seattle also.
Seattle.
So born in India, but currently living in Seattle.
Okay, and
We're all together.
you're all together. Okay.
Oh,
That's why so many Seattleites. So Prabhupada's movement really is international. Like I said, I've been all over the world, and I've been to Sweden. We have a compound in a place called Almviks Garden. I don't know if you know where that is. It's about maybe an hour and a half from Stockholm. So, and in Stockholm, believe it or not, because the Swedes are not, at least in my estimation, known worldwide for nice cuisine. Nobody gets up and thinks, I should have some Swedish food today. At least very few people. Most people, they would, they think Mexican or Italian or Chinese or something. But in Stockholm, our Govindas there is one of the best I've ever been to. Wonderful prasad, wonderful food they make there. At least when I was there, every day they would make, personally, on the spot, 3 different flavors of ice cream. How many Govindas restaurants you know who do that?
oh, tonight
Yeah.
we should have
Hare Krishna.
ice cream.
So then after Stockholm, I went to Goldberg, then I went to Denmark, and then I went to Norway. So I've been all over, Scandinavia, except for Finland. I haven't been to Finland yet. But my point is, Prabhupada is a visionary. Even though he started right here, a small little center, this room we're sitting in, his plans were bigger than that. International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Now, many times when Prabhupada would travel, people would ask him, why have you come here? Like one time he landed in New York, they asked him that, they asked him in London. He said, I've come to give you what you've forgotten, God. Some of you are saying there is no God, some of you are saying God is dead. I've come to give you God. So the main way in which Prabhupada is doing that is through his writing, his books, beginning with this Bhagavad Gita, which he labeled Bhagavad Gita as it is. Why? Because he explained himself that when he wrote this book, there were already hundreds of translations of Bhagavad Gita from the original Sanskrit into English. But nobody was becoming a devotee of Krishna. And I can attest to that because although I was a hedonist, I was part of a clique where we consider ourselves to be philosophers. We would, sit down and drink a little something and discuss thisism and thatism and like that. So there was a bookstore here in Manhattan called Wisner's. I don't know if they're still open. That's where you went to find esoteric books. If you wanted to know about Taoism or Hinduism or any ism, you go to Wisner's and you find a book. So we were reading Bhagavad Gita, but we weren't chanting Hare Krishna, we weren't becoming devotees. But as soon as I came into contact with Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, then immediately you're interested in who is Krishna and what is this all about. How many of you have read the Bhagavad Gita as it is, cover to cover? Put your hand up. Okay, those who haven't, you have your homework cut out for you. So tonight I was asked to speak on the 5th verse from the 8th chapter. Yeah?
Yeah. We have a few copies if people want to follow along that we can, so raise your hand.
Or again, you can go online,
Yes.
database.io, that you'll find Bhagavad Gita as it is, or just search Bhagavad Gita as it is,
Yeah.
and you can probably find the verse. But at least pass out the copies that you have.
So it's database.io to find a link if you like. We just have a few copies here.
All right, we need to get you some more copies.
Yeah.
I will get you a case of Bhagavad Gitas. Yes. So everybody found it? Chapter 8, which is entitled Attaining the Supreme. And tonight we're going to speak about text number 5. So while you're looking it up, I'll just chant some preliminary prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale, Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine, Namaste, Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine, Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Paschachadeshtarine. Om Agyanatavarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya, Chakshur Unvilitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishnang Shapitang Jaina Bhutale, Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vadayahang Shri Guru Shri Tapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaisamangscha Shri Rupam Sagadantam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Purjana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitangscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishavanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuve Evacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mata, were you in Croatia in '98 when I came? That was the first time I went to Croatia.
I lived in Serbia from 93 to 98. I think you came once to Serbia.
'98, I went to Czech Republic, and then came to Croatia, Zagreb. They invited me to speak at the end of your Sankirtan festival, and then after that, did go to Serbia. I went to.
By 98, I was already in Bhaktivinoda.
Oh, okay. Hare Krishna. So Bhagavad Gita is a song of God. And by this time, if you've been following along, if you've read the Gita, there's an introduction which sets the scene. It's called Setting the Scene, that first chapter, explaining why the circumstances surrounding this conversation between Krishna, Bhagavan, and his devotee and friend Arjuna. So there was this great war central to the Mahabharata, if you've read that. And then by the second chapter, Arjuna has decided that his confusion will not go away just by friendly talk, so he surrenders to Krishna and asks him to become his guru, his spiritual advisor, spiritual master. So Krishna begins, and again, set the scene. There's a battle about to take place. There are armies on both sides. Both of them are in the middle between the two armies. So Prabhupada said this whole discussion took place in about half an hour, 45 minutes max. And even the biggest philosophers nowadays, they can spend lifetimes trying to understand. And this is supposed to be the ABCs of spiritual life. So in the second chapter, Krishna establishes that the soul never takes birth and never dies. And this is the basis of understanding Bhagavad Gita, because sometimes foolish people say, if Krishna is God, his friend Arjuna doesn't want to fight, he doesn't want to kill, including his own relatives, why is God inducing him to fight and kill? What kind of God is that? He should just say, yeah, chill out, go to the forest, relax. No. So this is the basis of understanding that question, that the soul never takes birth or dies. So any transformation that's going to take place on the battlefield in terms of giving up the body, in other words, dying, that is just superficial. The soul, the life force within the body, never dies. So Krishna wanted to establish his devotees as the rulers of society should be God conscious, Krishna conscious, and then we have a chance of having real peace in the world. We look around the world and we see there's no peace, not just in terms of the wars that are going on, but internally, very few of us can say we're actually peaceful, because there's always this tension about what to do, what not to do, what's good, what's not good, etc. So, and then you multiply it on different levels, from the personal level to the familial level to the societal level to the international level. There's no peace because people do not know this basic fact. They have not realized. This is what self-realization means. Self-realization means to know yourself as being distinct from the gross and subtle material bodies. The gross body is made of earth, water, fire, air, ether, and the subtle body is made of mind, intelligence, and ego. But above all of that is the actual person, the soul. And when we realize that we are actually spirit, we're not a body that has a soul. We're a soul covered by a body, two types, the subtle body and the gross body. So when we firmly have that, even before self-realization takes place, if we accept that premise, then we can begin to understand what is transpiring here in the Bhagavad Gita. So after we establish that from the second chapter, which is contents of the Gita summarized, Krishna goes over most of what is going to be presented. Then after that, Krishna is explaining to Arjuna how to think, what to do, what not to do. Because later on in the 16th chapter, he will explain that there are actually two types of living entities in this entire universe, not just on this planet, everywhere. Dvaubhuta Sargalokesmin, Deva Asura Evacha. Those are who are divinely inspired, good people you could say, and those who are demonically inspired, bad people. And he explains that the distinction between the two is very clear. Pravartim cha nivritim cha jana na vidur asura. Na socham na pichacharo na satyam teshu vidyate. This is the beginning of the distinction between good and bad, the godly and the non-godly. Pravartim cha, pravartim means knowing what to do in every circumstance, wherever you find yourself, you should know what you should do. Nivritim cha, knowing what not to do. Because knowing what to do implies that there are some things that you shouldn't do. So you can't just know one, you have to know both. In every circumstance in life, I should know what I should do and what I should not do. Pravritim cha, nivritim, jana na vidu asura. So anybody, vidu means knowledge. Those who don't know, na vidu, then they are called asuras or demoniac people. Pravritim cha, nivritim cha, jana, personalities, na, not vidu asura. If you don't know, always, not just sometimes, if you don't know what you should do and what you should not do, then you're in the asura camp. And you need to be aware of that. Now, socham. Socham means cleanliness. Well, you know, most of us have been raised in the Judeo-Christian tradition. Cleanliness is next to godliness. We've heard that many times, and it's a fact. If you're not clean internally and externally, then you're probably not a godly person. So, na socham. Those who are demoniacally inclined, na socham, they're not clean. And again, that doesn't just imply externally, because we know there are many people who externally they look clean. They're wearing clean clothes, nice white collar. I worked for many years in Mad Avenue advertising, and everybody's button down, collar and tie, and they look clean externally, but internally not. And that was proven right here in New York. The very first time there was a huge blackout of practically the entire city. It was 66, I think it was, or 67, anyway. Lo and behold, they found that there was a lot of crime when the whole city was dark. But it wasn't just those guys on the street who you identify as being bad guys. A lot of those guys with the white collars and the tie, when everything was dark, they would grab some woman and rape her. That means internally not clean. Internally not clean. So cleanliness has to be both external cleanliness and internal cleanliness. Nasocham na pichachara. And they don't behave properly. Nasatyam, they don't tell the truth. They don't tell the truth. This is an indication of somebody who is not godly. When I was a child, it was jumped into me because my mother was a very diehard Christian. Speak the truth and speak it ever, cause it what it will. He who hides the wrong he does the wrong thing still. So in all circumstances, this is a Brahminical inclination. The politician is the one who can tell you a lie and it sounds so believable. So, like they say, a politician will tell you to go to hell and you'll gladly take the ride. They have such, gilded tongues. But a Brahmana, a godly person, will always tell the truth. Doesn't matter, even if it gets them in trouble, they'll tell the truth. You can rely on that. So again, we can look at our own lives as we're living currently and see where do we fit into those categories. Do we know what to do always and know what not to do always? Are we clean? Do we behave properly? Do we tell the truth? So that comes later. So now in this 8th chapter, after Krishna set the scene of that you're not this body, you're an eternal living entity, these are the ways you should think and things you should avoid. So Prabhupada explains that the Bhagavad Gita is 18 chapters. It's divided into 3 parts of 6 chapters each. So 1 through 6 is more or less, again, like setting the stage. 7 through 12 inclusive, that's 6 chapters, is explaining now about how to attain, as this title of this chapter says, attaining the Supreme, how to get the highest benefit out of being a human being. So in this verse, and we can read together if you have found it, we'll go line by line. Krishna says to Arjuna, Antakale chamam eva smaran muktva kalevaram yak prayati samadbhavam
Yaprayati samadbhavam
yati nasyatya samshayaha
Yati nasyatra samshaya
antakale cha mameva
Antakale chamameva
smaran muktva kalevaram
Smaran mukha kalevaram
yak prayati samadbhavam
Yaprayati samadbhavam
yati nasyatra samshayaha.
Yati nastyatra samshaya
One more time. Antakale cha mameva
Antakale chamameva
smaran muktva kalevaram
Smaran mukha kalevaram
yak prayati samadbhavam
Yaprayati samadbhavam
yati nasyatra samshayaha.
Yati nastyatra samshaya
And since there are only very few synonyms, we'll go through them. And this is what distinguishes Prabhupada's Gita from many of the others out there, is that you get word for word translation of each of the Sanskrit words. First of all, and then he gives you a translation and then his commentary. So, antakale, at the end of life, cha, also, mam, me, eva, certainly, smaran, remembering, muktva, quitting, kalevaram, the body, yaha, he who, payati, goes, saha, he, matbhavam, my nature, yati, achieves, na, not, asti, there is, atra, here, sangshayaha, doubt. So Srila Prabhupada's translation for this verse. And whoever at the end of life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Of course, it also applies to those who are female. Please repeat. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. So Srila Prabhupada wrote a short commentary on this verse. Please listen attentively. In this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. Anyone who quits his body in Krishna consciousness is at once transferred to the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is the purest of the pure. Therefore, anyone who is constantly Krishna conscious is also the purest of the pure. The word smaran, remembering, is important. Remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul who has not practiced Krishna consciousness in devotional service. Therefore, one should practice Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life. If one wants to achieve success at the end of his life, the process of remembering Krishna is essential. Therefore, one should constantly, incessantly chant the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya has advised that one be as tolerant as a tree, taror api sahishnana. There may be so many impediments for a person who is chanting Hare Krishna. Nonetheless, tolerating all these impediments, one should continue to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, so that at the end of one's life, one can have the full benefit of Krishna consciousness. So this advice is being given by Krishna. Krishna, as we explained, the Supreme Person. So whatever Krishna says is factual and beneficial. There can be no doubt. It's not like or somebody just that you don't know just comes up to you and gives you advice. You may accept or not accept because you don't know whether this person actually knows what they're talking about or not. And that's true in any field. Whether you're in the legal field, like Atmanaveda and Prabhu, I always say, if you have some legal difficulty, you don't go to your barber or your beautician or the store clerk on the corner. You want to find the best lawyer who can get you out of this predicament. Similarly with health. If one has some health problem, one wants to find a good doctor, whether it's an Ayurvedic doctor or regular doctor, whatever. You want to find a good doctor that can, first of all, diagnose the problem and therefore give the right approach for alleviating the problem. So the same thing is there in spiritual life. Some or other people think, yes, they can accept. If I have a legal problem, I want a good lawyer. If I have a medical problem, I want a good doctor. But some or other think when it comes to spiritual life, you can do your own thing. Whatever you do is okay. In India, that's called yatomat tatopat. Find your own way. Whatever way you come up with, worship this demigod, whatever you want to do, that's okay. It'll take you to the same goal. But is that actually factual? In the Western countries, it's again independence, doing your own thing. When I first joined the movement, my father, he was a businessman, and in his circle, he was like, you could say the pundit, the intellectual. All of his friends would come to him to discuss whatever problems they had. So when I told him I'm going to move into the Hare Krishna, he said, I can understand that you're attracted to this path, whatever, but why do you need a guru? Find out for yourself. Rely on your own intellect. But the fact that we're still here in this material world suffering means that we've made that mistake many, many times in the past. Krishna's material energy personified is called Maya, and her seva, her service to Krishna, is to test us. Whenever we start thinking about becoming spiritual, making spiritual advancement, she always tests us. Are you sure? This is just some hocus pocus. Come on, just go enjoy yourself, do something enjoyable. And we fall for it. We think, yeah, I'm smart and I have so many degrees, or, I've read so many books. And no, it's a trap. It's a trap. If we rely on our own intellect, if we rely on our own experience, then we're limiting what progress we can make in life. We're limiting ourselves. Because what is achievable, as Krishna is explaining here, is that you can achieve his nature. Now, what is Krishna's nature? Krishna's nature is very clearly explained by, as I said in the beginning, we're part of a spiritual lineage, and that lineage goes back to the first created being in the universe known as Lord Brahma. Or if you trace out your material lineage, it actually goes back to Lord Brahma, because he was the first created being, and then he created the demigods, and then they created humans and so many other species of life. So anyway you trace out your lineage, materially or spiritually, it actually goes back to Lord Brahma, in our case. In other cases, spiritually, it may go back to Lakshmi or four Kumaras like that, or different spiritual lines. We're part of Brahma's line. So Lord Brahma, he left, or he's still around, because when Lord Brahma leaves, when he either goes back to Godhead or dies, then this universe is finished. So he gave us this compendium known as the Brahma Samhita, out of which, while Lord Chaitanya was traveling in South India, he found in the traveling course state just one chapter, the 5th chapter. And in that 5th chapter, Lord Brahma starts out by saying, the very first verse, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So he's giving a definition, succinct definition of the Supreme Being Krishna. So the first thing is Ishvara Parama. Ishvara means controller. Every one of us here has control over some aspect of our lives, maybe some aspect of other people's lives. We have some control. So you can, in a sense, you can say we're all controllers. But there is one supreme controller who's not controlled by anyone else and who actually controls everyone. So that's Krishna. Ishvara Parama, which means the supreme, Krishna. So the supreme controller is Krishna. Satchid Ananda Vigraha. Vigraha means form. So this is something that's also not very clear, even to people who consider themselves to be. God is a person. He has a form. It's not just some amorphous cloud. You pray to the universe, give me this, give me that, and it pops out. No, there's a person behind the universe. Just because you cannot see doesn't mean that the person is not there. So there's the supreme being is a person. He has personality. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchid Ananda Vigraha. So his form is made of 3 classifications of qualities. Sat means eternal. Chit means knowledgeable. Satchit, and then Anand means blissful. Every one of us, if we're not insane, we want happiness. And that's what I said in the beginning of that pamphlet that I told you about, Krishna, the Reservoir of Pleasure. Every one of us is looking for happiness. If we're not insane, we want to be happy. We don't want any downside in life. We just want upside. We want happy relationships, happy eating, everything happy. We want everything happy, nice. But this world is created in such a way that it doesn't work that way. In spite of our endeavor to make everything nice, things go wrong. Things fall apart. And ultimately, we come to this point that Krishna is discussing in tonight's verse. We have to leave this body. Antakali means the time is up. Kala means time. And every one of us, at the point of birth, it can be discerned if you have a really good astrologer, not just some fake internet-trained astrologer, but somebody who really knows. They can look at your birth chart and tell you you're going to die at such and such point. And death is there for everybody. Everybody, it's stated in the second chapter, for anyone who takes birth, death is certain. And if you die, then rebirth is certain. So Antakali means time is going to run out. Whether you accept or not, it doesn't matter. It's going to happen. And we all have experience. Like in my case, I'll be 73 in October. My mother passed away 6-7 years ago at the age of 87. Father already long gone. He passed away at 72. My spiritual father, Srila Prabhupada, passed away in 1977 at age 82. So everybody's going to leave. But if we are grounded in the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, even if we're not yet fully self-realized, we accept, yeah, it's inevitable, but there's really nothing to worry about because I am an eternal being. I am not going to die. This body, final transformation is that. I can remember as far back as age 4, clearly, because like I said, I was born in the island of Jamaica, and I remember being outside at night at age 4, looking up at the sky, and that in Kingston, Jamaica, very little light pollution, so you can really see the sky. You can really see so many celestial bodies out there. Not like you go out in Manhattan or Brooklyn and there's too much light pollution, you can hardly see anything. Barely see the moon, what to speak of all the stars out there. But in 1956, that would be, in Jamaica, Kingston, Jamaica, on a dark moon night especially, you can see everything out there. And I remember wondering as a child, OMG. At that time, of course, it was, oh my God, but now for us it's, oh my Govinda. But I remember wondering, how do I fit into all of that? You know, you feel so tiny. Not just because you have a small body, but you know, you understand. I'm just one little insignificant soul in this. So really at an early age, I started questioning. My mother especially, because again, as I told you, she was a dyed-in-the-wool Christian. And the thing that bugged me the most was, it would seem very obvious to anybody, is if God is fair and just, how is it that there's so much inequity in the world? How is it that things are not, everybody's not on an equal platform? Because in my own family, I could see. On one end was a younger sister of my mom who dropped out of school, married some, to put it nicely, bum. Quickly gave her 2 children, never could hold a job, and they were always scrambling just to eat. And then the other end of the spectrum, my mother's older brother, she's one of 8, he dropped out of medical school, went into real estate, and became a millionaire many times over. So why that disparity? If God is fair and just, why not everybody on an equal platform? Hold on. So I went to my mother as a child. Child means maybe at that time 8, 9 years old. Why all this disparity? Why doesn't everybody get an equal chance? So she couldn't answer to my satisfaction. She said, go to the minister and talk to him. So I went to church, because I would go with her to church every Sunday anyway. And I spoke to the minister. He couldn't give me a satisfactory answer. Oh, God works in mysterious ways and this and that. And some hodgepodge. I never got a clear answer until I found Bhagavad Gita as it is, where Krishna explains that everything you do is creating some future, good or bad. And it's very clearly explained in the Bhagavatam, in the 10th canto, of the Srimad Bhagavatam. If you haven't read that yet, you should read the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a verse that says, Eka prasuyate jantu, eka esha praliyate, eko nubungte sukritam, eka esha chadushkritam. It says every living entity is born alone, dies alone, and alone has to enjoy or suffer the reactions to their good and bad activities. That is karma in a nutshell. Every one of us is doing something good. Even the worst criminal once in a while gives somebody a few bucks, you know. So every one of us does at least some little something good. And even the so-called best person in the world is even unconsciously doing something bad. You walk down the street, some poor cockroach is going and you step on him, you don't even know it. That's counted as bad karma. That roach has a right to live just like you do. That ant that you step on without thinking about it has a right to live. Every living entity has a right to live a natural life and die a natural death. What to speak of the more evolved living entities like cows. So many people every day they're slaughtering cows and eating them. There's reaction for that. They don't realize it. And that's why they continue to do that. In the Puranas and Bhagavatam, you'll find the history of one Mrigari, a hunter. So Narad Muni, who is a great sage, he's always traveling all over the universe to deliver people to the proper path, the spiritual path. So he was going along and he kept noticing some animal shot with an arrow flopping around, not dead, but in agony. And then another one, and then another one. He said, what's going on here? So he traced down and he found this hunter, Mrigari. Mriga means animal and Ari means enemy. So his name literally meant he was enemy of the animals, Mrigari. So Narad Muni said, what are you doing? Well, I'm a hunter by trade. This is what I do for a living. But why are you leaving them half dead, flopping around? That's how my father taught me. We enjoy watching the animals die. He said, first of all, he said, do me a favor, just kill them outright. He's a saintly person. Here's a saintly person telling this guy, just kill him outright. Don't leave him in pain like that. But then he said later on, you don't have to do this for a living. I want you to take to the spiritual path. So now, of course, this guy had been a hunter his whole life. He was not naturally inclined to become a saintly person. So it's explained one of the reasons why he accepted Narada Muni's proposition, because Narada Muni, by his mystic potency, he showed him all these animals that you've killed, they're waiting in subtle form to kill you life after life. That's what convinced him. You know, like we say in life, there's a carrot and a stick. You can induce somebody with positive or you give them the negative. So that was the negative side of his conversion. He saw what was waiting for him in the future and he didn't want to go there. So eventually Narada Muni convinced him to break his bows and arrows, sit down, chant Hare Krishna, and he became known as a saintly person. So Krishna is explaining here that the end is coming, Antakali, but if you, at that last moment, remember me, then you will attain my nature. So like we said, Krishna's nature is Sat Chit Ananda, eternality, knowledge, and bliss. And that's actually our nature also. We are all eternal sparks of the Supreme. Minute soul, the Supreme Soul, but qualitatively the same. Proper the example we would use all the time is that if you take even the tiniest fragment of gold, like I'm wearing this gold bracelet. This was made by a devotee friend of mine in Croatia, who is they say zlatar, right? A goldsmith in Croatia is called a zlatar. So he made me this. So it's a tiny piece of gold compared to all the gold in the world, but it has all the same properties as a gold ingot or a whole room full of gold, same properties. So similarly, all of us as individual souls, we have the same qualitative nature as God, Sat Chit Ananda, but quantitatively not the same. Another example Prabhupada would use is if you take one drop of ocean water. Here we're on the Atlantic. I'm used to saying Pacific because I lived in LA for the last 32 years. I just came back here in March. So if you take one little drop of Atlantic water and analyze it, it has the same chemical composition as the vast Atlantic Ocean. But if I throw one drop at you, but if a huge Atlantic wave comes at you, that's a different story. So that's the comparison between the individual soul and the Supreme Soul, Krishna. So Krishna is saying, make plans not to come back here again, because this place will never be comfortable for you. All of us here, the reason why we don't feel comfortable here is not because I have a bad neighbor or a bad wife or husband or a bad boss, or it's because we just don't belong here. We are like, the comparison is like fish out of water. If you take a fish out of water, and this is an example I use a lot when teaching or speaking to children in elementary school, because they can all relate to that. Especially, again, I was in the LA area for like the last 32 years. So I said, if you go down to the Pacific, you're on the beach, and you see a fish flopping around, what would you do? So in the allegory, in the comparison that we use, we say it doesn't matter what you give that fish, the fish is not going to be happy. If you go up to the fish and say, oh my dear fish, I see you're in agony. Would you like something to eat? Let me just run to near fast food and bring back. So the fish may take a little nibble, but it's still going to be flopping around. So then you're wondering, what is wrong with this guy? Oh, he must be a poor fish. I'm going to go to my ATM and I'm going to come back with a few $1,000s I give you. Is that all right? Again, not going to get the job done. Romance. Of course, everybody's looking for romance. Let me go find you a nice girlfish. And you come back with a girlfish. Is he going to be happy? No. And then I ask the kids, what would make that fish happy? And they all get it. Put him back in the water. Put him back in the water and he'll be happy. So we're all like that. We are like spiritual fish out of the spiritual ocean, flopping around in the material ocean. And it doesn't matter what we have. It doesn't matter what we have. We will never be happy here. And we see that. What does that make? Usually people think will make them happy. The first thing, money. People think money. Everybody's money conscious nowadays. One of my god brothers, also disciple of Srila Prabhupada, you may have heard his name, Ambarish Das. His original name was Alfred Ford, so he was heir to the Ford fortune, has tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. So we were together once, I think this was 1995, in Mayapur, our world headquarters. And he said, you've heard that story, the saying, the maxim that money can't buy happiness, right? Everybody's heard that. He said, the rich people know that it's true because they have money and they're not happy. And the poor people hope that it's true because they're envious. So if we look around the world right now, in the world that we live in, the vast majority of the problems that are created on this planet right now are created by rich people. The person who's attacking Ukraine right now, they don't even know how much he's worth. They're guessing about $200 billion. But the man is so frustrated, every day he gets up and makes plans to kill more of his neighbors. That's his goal in life, to destroy this next neighboring country. And that war is very personal to me because I've been to all of those countries, except for Moldova. I've been to Ukraine, I've been to Russia, I've been to Georgia, I've been to Poland, I've been to Hungary. All of those countries. And I have friends in all those countries. And already some Hare Krishna devotees have been killed in that war. Because of this, mainly, not the only reason, but mainly because of this one frustrated person who's worth more than $200 billion and is still not happy. So we should take it as a fact. Money will not make us happy. Health, yeah, of course, everybody wants to be healthy. But again, in spite of your best health regime, the body's going to stop working at some point. Relationships, yes, we're all looking for meaningful relationships, but the most meaningful relationship, Krishna is reminding us here again, is with Him. So if at the end of life, if we concentrate, and this is what Bhakti Yoga is all about, not neglecting anything or anyone, but concentrating first and foremost on the Supreme. If we concentrate first and foremost on reviving our relationship with the Supreme Person, Krishna, then everything else falls into place. Everything else falls into place. We understand clearly, who am I, who is everybody else, what is the goal of life, how to achieve it. Everything becomes clear when we concentrate on Krishna. And later in this chapter, he will explain how to do that. The whole Bhagavad Gita is pointing in that direction, but clearly later on in this chapter he says, Kabim Puranam, Anusashitaram, Anor, and Yangsam. So he gives us a clear formula of how to revive our relationship with him. So I'll stop here. We've said a lot so far. If anybody has any reflections, any questions. You had something, yes? So good to see you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, nice meeting you. So I was saying, I was just having this thought, right?
You need to speak up a little bit. I can't hear so well.
Sorry. So I was having the thought, can we, like you said, like we're acting on something and those things will generate karma.
Mhm.
And is there somebody or something that governs our actions, or all of our actions are governed by ourselves?
Excellent question. Did everybody hear that? Is there something that governs our actions, since we have to enjoy ourselves for the results of our actions? Is there something that governs that? Or ultimately we're responsible? We made the choice of turning away from Krishna. Because sometimes people ask, if the spiritual world, the kingdom of God is perfect, why would anybody leave? So perfection is based on having free will. We all have experience. You cannot force somebody to love you, even like you, what to speak of loving you. It has to be freely. Love is a free exchange. So everything in the spiritual world is based on love, freely given. But we have always that ability of turning away from that perfect arrangement. Why should Krishna be in the center of attention, attraction? Why not me? We can always think like that. So in the spiritual world, you cannot pursue that thought. You have to come here. So Krishna creates a mature world where every one of us, in essence, is trying to be the supreme being. We want to be the center of attention and attraction for everybody else. And you can't have 8 billion centers. You just keep clashing. It's like if you go down to a still pond, if you take some pebbles and you keep throwing every one of them in the same spot, then you get nice concentric circles. But if you throw them all over, then you get clashing. So we're always clashing because every one of us wants to be numero uno. Every one of us wants to be numero uno. We don't want to share the spotlight. But we're trained that yes, you have to, otherwise nobody will like you. If you look at children, when they're 2 years old, everything is theirs. Anything that they like, mine. Doesn't matter if it belongs to somebody else. No, mine. And then gradually, mother teaches especially, share with your siblings, share with your neighbors, share. And in that way you become likable. If you maintain that childish mentality that everything is mine, then nobody likes you. Who wants to be around somebody who's like that? We like generosity. I remember right here in New York, as a young man before I joined at age 21. So I had a friend, actually a friend of a friend, who lived upstate New York, very successful guy. And he had a big estate, probably still does, I lost track over the years. And he let the word be known to us guys here in New York that he was going away for a while, but he would just leave everything open. We could go up there, and so we did. We got in the car, went up there. And I remember specifically, because I was a car nut at one point. He had some really nice cars in the driveway, including that must have been like in the early 70s. Anyway, he had a 60-something Ferrari. And that was the first time I ever drove a Ferrari. I was like, so we like generosity. We like people like that. They're not attached and come and enjoy. But if I had foolishly thought, well, I like this house, I like this estate, I love this Ferrari, and then I make arrangements so this guy can come back and... So that's what we're trying to do. We come here, we're born with nothing, and when we die, we can't take anything. But in the interim, we fight like anything. Mine, like this guy now, he wants to claim that Ukraine doesn't have a separate existence, it belongs to Russia. No, everything belongs to God. Everything belongs to Krishna. This is the beginning of spiritual life. It's called the Ishavasya principle. Ishavasya midam sarvam yatkinchaja gatyajakat tena taktena bunjita magrada kasa swiddanam. Everything inanimate and animate is controlled and owned by the Lord. Therefore, all of us can take what we need for our sustenance, but nothing more than that. But unfortunately, we always try to take more than that. Every one of us, all we need is a little bit of space to sleep in, enough food to keep body and soul together, some clean air, clean water. This is what we really need. But in the drive to get more and more and more, we ravage this earth. Like I said, I grew up just 15 minutes from the current Brooklyn Temple, Park Slope. And downtown Brooklyn was, it was already built up, but it's nothing near what we have now. You can't look out any window and see anything but more windows. Everywhere you look, windows, windows. This building with 500 windows, another building with 1,000 windows, windows everywhere. You can barely see the sky. This is not civilization. This is madness. But people feel, if I can work hard and afford a $5,000 a month apartment on the 17th floor, wow, that I have arrived. Yes, Kofi.
Just a quick question. So you mentioned that one of the reasons we turn away from God is because, I guess we want self-aggrandizement. We want to see ourselves as God, and I guess we fall into material world because that's an opportunity to experience that. But it's our nature to be part of God. And so I'm just wondering, if we're originally part of God, unified in the beginning, and then the material world comes from God, why would we see ourselves as separate from Krishna in the first place? Why would we?
Because we are. We're not homogeneous. It's not that it was like, one big piece of cloth that was the spiritual reality, and then one little piece got torn off, and then when it goes back, it gets joined up again. No. Krishna says, Mamai Bangsa Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta, Sanatana. Sanatana means eternally. We are eternally separate entities. Every one of us is a distinct spiritual being eternally. And when we consciously interact positively with the Supreme Being, then everything goes well. Every one of us is happy, he's happy, everything's happy. But again, you can't force that. There has to be that element of free will. Otherwise, we would be automatons. Krishna, I love you, Krishna, I love you, Krishna, I love you. No. We're sentient beings, so we have to give our love consciously, freely. And the opposite of that is you have to have the free will to turn away. Not in any negative way like being a rebel, but just a thought. That generation and service, what would it be like if I was in that position? So to experience that, you have to come to the material world, because you can't experience that in the spiritual world. So getting back and tying it in with her question, is that once you come to the material world, then there are three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. I compare them to like different radio stations. Like there's a classical station, there's a rock station, and then there's a death rock station. Now you voluntarily tune into the station. You don't control the programming. So if you tune into the rock, to the classical station, then you're going to hear Tchaikovsky and Chopin and, all beautiful all day long, all day long. But if you get bored with that and you tune into the rock station, then you're going to hear, I can't get no satisfaction. I mean, this is going back to my days. I don't know what passes as rock nowadays, but. And then if you turn into the death rock station, the lowest of the low type music out there, then you can hear, kill your landlord. So yesterday I was giving class in the Brooklyn Temple, and I mentioned that there was this guy here, right here in New York, son of Sam, who went around killing a lot of people, especially couples. He had something against romance, I guess. And so when they finally caught him, he said the voice inside was telling him to do it. So this is what happens. If you tune into the wrong radio station, if you tune into the wrong spiritual strata, material strata actually, then you're going to do bad things. Or good things. Save the whales, save the trees and all that. But that's not going to get you back to the spiritual world. Even on the platform of goodness. I give in charity, like I save whales, I save trees. That's good. Nice. But it's not going to get you back to the spiritual world. But at least somebody on that platform is usually intelligent enough that we can have these kinds of discussions. The ones who are walking around thinking, kill my landlord, they don't want to hear this. They don't want to hear Bhagavad Gita. They just want to hear, where can I get a gun? If I can't buy one legally or get one illegally, then I go online and I get a, what do they call them nowadays? It's 3D printing, I can 3D print my own gun. Like that. They only want to think of death, death, death. Just like that guy. Every day he wakes up with worth more than $200 billion. He's thinking, how can I send more soldiers to kill? How can I get more, drones from this place? And that's his whole focus. It's obvious. The guy could be chilling. They were. A few decades, not that long ago, all these Russian oligarchs, they were traveling all over the world. They had their yachts. They had buildings in London and New York and everywhere. Now all of that is gone because of one person's ego. To kill, kill, kill. So this is the downside. You don't get away with anything. Whatever you do is going to produce some reaction. And he's experiencing that. Outcome is not what he wanted. It's something else. Because it's beyond him. The modes of nature, the reactions that we get are not controlled by us. And I'll give another example. Sometimes, I've given this many times, some of you may have heard it, but sometimes karma is instant. But sometimes it doesn't come till wait on the road. And then you wonder, why is this happening to me? Because you forgot what you did to deserve it. But sometimes it's instant. And the example I use is, I had a friend, I was on the West Coast already at that time, but I had a friend here in New York who was originally from Armenia. And it's not about Armenians, that Armenians are bad people or others aren't. But he was from Armenia, and he had a cousin who was at that time living in Arizona. So this guy had a boring job in a factory somewhere. And every Friday, he established this routine. He would get a six-pack, and he'd get his shotgun, he'd get in his pickup truck and go out in the desert, get drunk, and take his shotgun and just blow down the cactus. Somewhere, and he found that to be fun. We just shoot and blow them. Now the saguaro cactus, when they're like 14, 15 feet tall, they're already 150 years old, 200 years old, some of them 400 years old. Well, this guy got a thrill just shooting them down. So one Friday, same routine, he went out, pulled the trigger, and the cactus fell forward and killed him. So sometimes karma is instant. You do something and you get a bad reaction or a good reaction immediately. But most of the time it's not. You're cruising along through life and you get smacked and you wonder, why? I'm a good person. Why is this happening to me? You don't remember what you did earlier in this life or in some previous life. It's not all from this life. So that's how karma works. But we don't put two and two together. Because every one of us is convinced that I am a good person. I don't do anything bad. But as we said, even just walking down the street, stepping on the ants, they have a right to live. So that reaction should come back to you. And the only way to avoid that reaction is to engage in the service of the Supreme. So this is what Krishna explains at the end of the Bhagavad Gita. Sarvadharma parityaja mam ekam sharanam braja aham tvang sarva papebhyo mokshashyami. That if you surrender to me and work under my direction, then none of this reaction, good or bad, will affect you. Because even good karma is not ultimately good. Good karma means I've lived a good life, I die and I come back again, which is troublesome. 9 months in the womb, and then you have to learn again, all over again, ABC, and what to eat, what not to eat, not to stick your finger in the electrical outlet. All these things, you have to start over again. Now we do carry sometimes some positive. One of my godbrothers, who's now departed, but his widow is still with us. They're both disciples of Srila Prabhupada. So they have a son. He's still here, the son. They were both Americans, but they had been transferred to do service in London. So they were living in London when their son was born. Son was born there. And they noticed that from an early age, he was very, very musically talented. You could say a musical prodigy. So they were curious, because neither one of them were particularly musical. So eventually they had a past life regression done. And the person who did the regression told him that this boy had been a lawyer in London, but he was very much interested in wisdom from India, Vedic culture. And on top of being a lawyer, he was also an accomplished pianist. So, this is how karma works. It's not an accident. The parents were transferred to London. He was born there, which is where he died, which is where he was living and working for many years. So that soul was transferred to the womb, and you grew up in a family where he had access to the real Vedic culture as given by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. So that's how karma works. I saw a hand in the back, gentleman back there. Had a hand up? Question or comment? Yes.
So there are souls in the spiritual world who never fell to the material world.
Yeah.
And we fell. So are there souls?
Not fell. Yeah, don't use the word fell.
Fallen soul they call.
Yeah, we say fallen soul, but you don't actually fall. A fall is when something makes you fall. Nothing in the spiritual world makes you fall. There's no Maya in the spiritual world that's going pss, pss, pss. See, here in the material world, Maya is always trying to entice you. You're trying to live without intoxication, but Maya is always enticing you. Come on, all your friends take a little hit. But in our case, there's no Maya in the spiritual world that induces you to fall. It's just your own desire to experience what it would be like.
So when you go back to Krishna spiritual world, do you ever get you also have a forgetfulness. Do you ever come back down?
Excellent question. And Prabhupada was asked that directly. Because Krishna says, once you come back to me in the spiritual world, you never come back to this material world. So the devotees are a little confused. If we have free will, why would we never come? He said it's just like once bitten, twice shy. Or if you, as a child, maybe you put your hand in the fire and you never did it again. It's not that you can't do it, but you never did it again because you've had the experience. So when we go back to the spiritual world, it's not that we've lost our free will. We could always, again, come back. But because we've been through the experience, we don't. Yes, innovative.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Please go ahead,
No, yeah.
because maybe I'll learn something from you.
No, I like do that.
No, okay.
I once had a dream that, in a dream I was told that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and then what the world needs is love, peace, and healing, and through bringing back consciousness, not living in the past experiences or in the future, is how we're gonna be able to, and resetting the nervous system is how we're gonna be connected back to the Christ within. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, again, no matter how we try to make this world that we're living in, this earth planet, a nice, beautiful place, still, this moment will come. Antakali, death will come. And then what happens afterwards? This is what we're trying to qualify ourselves for. Yes, we should try to live in a loving way with neighbors, family, everybody. And that is possible to a certain extent. But the four real problems that we are facing on the material plane is birth, death, old age, and disease. And you cannot mitigate that by any amount of wishful thinking. All you need is love. Yeah, we can go around singing that all the time, but it's not going to change the fact. You've already taken birth, the fact that you're here singing, you're already born. Death is there, coming for everybody, Antakali, as Krishna says. And in between birth and death, there's usually some disease. Everybody experiences some type of disease. And if you stay completely healthy, still old age takes its toll and you're going to die. So this is what we should try to solve. Collectively, we can do it. And that's why Prabhupada stresses in today's purport, twice he mentioned, chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is the recommended process for solving all problems in this age. There are 4 ages that rotate, just like the seasons rotate. Spring is followed by summer, by fall, by winter, and then again spring. So on a universal scale, there is what we call the golden age, Satya Yuga. People were living to 100,000 years, and in that age, the recommended process was meditation. People could sit down literally tens of thousands of years and just meditate. That was the process for self-realization, for going back to the spiritual world. Now, in the next age, and it's a gradual transformation, it's not abrupt. One age doesn't abruptly turn into another, it just gradually declines and changes. So from the Satya Yuga, you get to the Treta Yuga. The duration of life gradually diminishes from 100,000 years to 10,000 years. Now in the Treta Yuga, the recommended process was elaborate fire sacrifice. the kings, the rulers, because at that time it was all monarchy all over the world. They would bring the citizens together and they would perform elaborate fire sacrifices, very expensive with gold and ghee, and it takes a lot of effort. And by that effort, collectively everybody's spiritual consciousness will be raised. Then the next stage after that is called the Dwapara Yuga. Again, gradually the duration of life diminishes from 10,000 years to 1,000 years. And then in that age, which is just prior to the age we're in now, in that age the recommended process was elaborate temple worship. That's why you found not only in India but all over the world so many elaborate temples. Anybody here from Mexico? So many elaborate temples in Mexico, in Central America, in Africa, in India, all over the world. Because that was the age just prior to the one we're in, and in that age, people would come together collectively and worship in temples, worship God, and elaborately with gold and real jewels and stuff like that. And that's why when the British first went to India, they saw in temples so many valuable jewels being used to worship these idols as they thought them to be. And they stole a lot of them. They never went into Jagannath Puri. They never went into Puri. Puri is a separate case. But almost all over India they were stealing, and all over the world. Now, in this age, maximum is 100. Few people may live beyond, but most people don't even live to 100. So we don't have a lot of time. So in this age, the recommended process for self-realization, God realization, is chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Now, it has to be done with a quality, though, a certain level of quality, not just chanting. One has to chant while avoiding activities, as we were saying. You have to know what to do and what not to do. Avoiding activities that will slow down your spiritual progress. And that falls into 4 categories. The first one is flesh eating. So we have to promise no meat, fish, or eggs. Because if you become a flesh eater, you become merciless. And a merciless heart is not a place for God to sit. So we have to make that promise. We don't eat any meat, fish, or eggs. No intoxicants. As I said, as a young man, I was the leader of the group. Because back then everything was illegal. Marijuana, everything was illegal. So it took a little intelligence to find the right stuff and share it with everybody without getting caught and sent to jail. So that was one of the that was one of the things that I did. So we have to promise no intoxication, no alcohol, no smoking, anything, nothing. No illicit sex. We don't say no sex, but no illicit sex. Because illicit sex keeps you on the bodily platform. Instead of seeing a person as a spiritual partner, I see them as an object of my lust. Somebody that, I call it love, but it's really lust. I want you to facilitate my enjoyment. And I see you as we know, when people say, I don't want to hang out in the bars anymore, they're just meat markets. People see me as a piece of flesh and they just want to, like that. That's the mentality of somebody who's driven by illicit sex. So you have some desire for sexual union, then you find a partner, you marry, and you natural byproduct of marriage is children, like that. And have a stable society when we do that. And no gambling. Gambling means it's inherently a cheating process. By our karma, as we were discussing, you get good or bad reaction. So every one of us, part of that good or bad is we have a certain level of wealth that's available to us in each lifetime. Some people like Ambarish, my godbrother, I was telling you about, he was born in the 4th family, so from birth, he's got that, not just a silver spoon, gold spoon in the mouth. Everything taken care of, no worries at all. And on the other end, like I told you about that aunt, dropped out of school, married some bum, had 2 children while she was young, always scraping just to eat. So why, again, that disparity? That's karma, that's how karma works. So if you take what has been given to you, not karma, and then you gamble it trying to get more, and we know best gamblers, they lose. 99.99%, they lose. Experiment I used to use with kids when I would talk to them is, if I was a very generous guy, and not just generous, because I am, but if I had money to be generous, and I give every one of you in this class right now $10 million, whoa, wouldn't that be great? But then if I came back a year from now, and then I took assessment, what is your financial status? Would everybody be on the same financial page? No. Some foolish person would immediately go to Vegas, and in a couple of weeks it's all gone. And opposite end of the scale, somebody would just tuck that money away and never even touch it. They would still have 10 million a year from now. And then in between, some people would invest a few million, keep a few million like that. Everybody different based on their personality, because every personality is different. So that's how karma works. Everybody's given a certain amount based on their, what you do with it is up to you. If you spend your karmic bank account properly, then you're going to make advancement. If you blow it, then you're going to go down. So Krishna will explain later on that it's not that everybody gets the same destination. Urdvam gacchati sattasta. If you are in the mode of goodness at the time of death, maybe you don't remember Krishna, but at least you died in the mode of goodness, then you go upwards. You go to the higher planetary systems. Madhyam tishyanti rajasa. If you're in the mode of passion, then you stay more or less in this kind of situation. Earth planet means not as heavenly, delightful as people living on the heavenly planets, but not as hellish as people living on hellish planets. There's something in the middle. But if you die in the mode of ignorance, then you go down. Again, many people think that, I believe in reincarnation. After this life, maybe I'll be a prince or a princess, or I'll come back as a Rockefeller or something like that. No. Depending on how you've lived this life, that's going to determine what you get next life. Some will go upwards, some will stay the same, some will go down to animal life. So that's why we have to be careful. That's why Krishna is saying here, Antakale chamam. You have to, at the end of life will come for everybody. Antakale is going to be there for everybody. Chamam, smaran mukwa kalevaram. But if you think of me at the end of life, then you will attain my nature, which is, as we said, Sat Chit Ananda. So now it's up to us. Every one of us has intelligence to make that decision. Do I want to go up? Do I want to stay the same? Do I want to go, or do I want to go all the way in the highest destination, Krishna Loka, in the spiritual world? Okay. Did you have something else?
Yes, I have another question. So, so if you say that we have freedom and we all want to be back to Krishna, so why were we born from the first place?
Why were we born? We answered that previously. You voluntarily turned away from Krishna to experience what it would be like to be the center of attention and attraction. But once you fall here, the laws of karma kick in. If you do good, you get some good reaction. You do bad, you get bad. And all of us has a mixture of both good and bad. Everybody has a mixture of good and bad.
So if we go back, we can still come back.
You can. You never lose your free will. But it's like the example of putting your hand in fire. You don't do it again. You can do it, but you don't do it again. Because you've had the experience. And it wasn't pleasant. So
before that, we didn't know it's going to be hurting us. That's why we came here. And after knowing it's going to hurt us, we try to avoid that and go back.
yes, exactly. Yeah, it's called experience. In this life we have. You experience something bad and you don't want to experience that again. But unfortunately, as long as you stay in this mature world, it's not just by your desire. Because as they say, if desire was the guarantor of outcome, then every pauper would be a king. Because everybody on the street is wishing to have the highest level of material existence. So it's not just by desire, it's by what you deserve. So Prabhupada used to say many times, first deserve, then desire. So we have to live life in such a way that we deserve the best, not just that we want the best. Because again, anybody can sit around and want the best, but if you don't act in such a way that you deserve the best, then you're not going to get it. Okay, I think we've gone too long, and we can speak informally, but to stay on track with the program, I think we should move on to the next phase.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I really enjoyed hearing you explain about the Bhagavad Gita and educating me spiritually. Thank you. So now we're going to do Hare Krishna Kirtan for about 15 minutes. It'll be chanting Hare Krishna now for about 15 minutes. So for anyone who hasn't been here before and who hasn't been in the Kirtan, we had the chanting before the class if you came in a little bit after that. So it means that one person chants, then people respond like a chorus back and forth. And I'm going to request my friend here to lead the kirtan, if that's okay. Okay, and then Guneshwar Prabhu. Would you like to play Mridangam or should I?
You don't have a better
Well,
one.
I-
I'm here to middling.
Guneshwar can play. He has fun playing. Should I do that?
Yes.
And then, okay, great. So Guneshwar, come up, Prabhu. Don't hide back there.
Just make sure you tighten all the joints properly.
Beautiful Mahamantra right here. I'll lead, and then we all respond in unison. And we call out with all our hearts to connect with Krishna, to realize our spiritual nature.